Alright, I'm guessing that this thing is working. I'm not entirely sure. I've got it playing, but this is the first time I've ever done a live broadcast like this directly from clip. So I'm going to try to get through this with the least amount of fuck ups. Yeah, I can hear the audio playing in the background. It's got about a 5-second lag, so that should work. All right, what I'm doing here is really pretty basic. I've got the pencils already locked in for the individual frames, and I've got everything set on the timeline down here. Now, when I initially popped this in here, I used a lot of drawings from another file that I just imported in, animated it, and changed them around. So I've got a lot of cleanup to do here on the actual names of the files. As you can see right here, I've got just like layer A81 and layer 74 popped in. I'm following the simple pattern here of roughs, inks, and colors for my 3 layers inside each individual cell. Now I got to convert this into that. That's the rough layer, so I'm just going to add another layer. Call that colors. Call that inks. Call that roughs, and move it up the top eventually. There. Now, the shitty part, if you want to call it that, is that I got to do that for every single one of these layers down here in the bottom. Not fun. But, got to be done. So, bear with me. I'm not going to talk a lot while I do it because I don't want to screw it up. But that is what is going on here. There's a lot of room for error in this particular portion because if you lose track of what's what, you label them wrong, and then when you start working on an individual layer, you get 30 cells deep and you realize you've screwed up the entire process and have to do the whole scene over again. I do not want to do that. The weird part is I can't see this playing live. So let me make sure it's still caught up. Yeah, there we go. As soon as I get all of this crap done, I'll jump into the actual finishing of these cells. The whole scene itself is locked in. I've just got to do all the cleanup now. So this particular scene goes to right here and stops, and then the next one starts up again. So I'm almost there. And apologies in advance if you hear me sniffing a lot. The sinuses are not cooperating today. Now there are better ways of doing this, but I don't know them because I'm still relatively new to all of this. So I know that the way I'm doing it is very potentially ass backwards. That's okay. This is what's working for me, so I'm going to stick with it until someone shows me a better way. The goal here is pretty simple. Get through this, start on the next one, and try to get it finished today too. I got the whole weekend off, so I want to get as much of this knocked out as I can. I've been working on this stupid project for the better part of 6 months now, and I'd like to get some completion done on it. Here, now I'm ready to ink it, so I'm just going to go back in to the ink layer, get my pen. Now I do all the inking on this with brush, the Minuteman brush. The reason I like this particular brush is that it doesn't change shape or size during the process. So no matter how hard I press down on it, it's going to stay the exact same. This is really good for animation because it gives me one single line that I don't have to duplicate thickness on. And that makes all the difference in the world when you're jacking with stuff that just the slightest pressure change will immediately screw up. And second I mentioned screw up, there it goes. Alright, there we go. The only drawback to this pen is that it does, if you don't line everything up exactly, leave these really weird overhangs like this right here that you got to go in and clean up. And they're not horrible, but they're annoying. They're pretty easy to fix. But if you don't pay attention, you're going to screw up a lot and have to do a lot of fixing. So it's best just to pay attention from the beginning so you don't have to go fix everything later. Now you notice I got the thickness different on the background character than the front. That's just basic design. I want him to be thinner here so that as he gets bigger, the line thickens. Now, one thing you got to be careful on here are these little guys right here. I call them exclusions or exigents. They're basically just areas where I don't have the lines lining up properly. The reason why they're a pain is that when you go to color this, if you got any gaps in there, the fill tool doesn't like those, and it will punish you for every single gap by doing a really bad thing. And I'm really going to try to avoid that here. Ah, crap. If you're wondering why I'm upset about that, I don't like tangents. And that is where you got the lines that are kind of matching on top of each other, even though this is going to be in motion. Any kind of tangent confuses a person looking at it, and they're really, really bad, and I try very hard to avoid them. think that's good. Pull back and check it, make sure it's not screwed. Good advice here is to always draw these lines all the way down to the bottom, and they don't have to be good once they're past this line right here, but they do have to be good up to that line because that's what gets shown on the camera. The reason you extend them down is because when you do the coloring and the filling, you want it to go all the way to the outside edge so that it gets caught on camera and everything in here is going to be seen. That said, redo that and then drop the reference layer. Boom, that works. Alright, on the next one. This is a time-consuming process. This is what animation is. It's not sitting there drawing one continual full-page spread. It is hours and hours of tedious doing this shit all day long until you have something that looks like it's in motion. Let me check that. Now I'm going to fix the volume on him as I go, because one thing that I did that I didn't intend to was, as I animated him through this punch scene, I increased his volume exponentially for like every single cell that I drew. So as I get to the end of this thing, he's a lot bigger than he's supposed to be. And that looks weird. But that's why this process right here is so important, because this is where we catch things like that. Alright, I like it. Now, I'm not worried about the occlusions on this because this is all one color, but that one's got to go because it will screw everything up down the line. I'm trying to save time here, so I don't want that. Okay. I'm going to put the onion layer on, because I don't like the way that that changed. I got to fix it as I go. So the gap that I got between them is, it's about the same. He is shifted. Let's turn it back off and then just go. I've already checked a ton of this repeatedly in motion, so I'm pretty comfortable with the way it lines up. Any edits that I make here at this point are going to be entirely superficial. Nope, I screwed that up. Yeah. Do it here. Shit balls. One of the easiest tricks that I've got here to make something look like it's slightly in motion is just to ink towards the outside edge of the thing that I just drew. Gives it a slight roll. And then makes it line up pretty close to where I was going initially. I gotta turn the onion layer off for this. was never really locked in on this arm, so I'm going to change it. Alright, there we go. This is easily one of my biggest Achilles heels animating, is keeping a single steady line from making too much change when he's supposed to be standing still and giving everything that wash effect. I don't like that. And it is absolutely something that I work on. I'm just not very good at it. Fortunately, I have a really good undo button. I'm not going to keep this live broadcast going on very long. I just wanted to start it up to show the process of getting the folders lined up, the cells lined up, and the layers lined up, and then getting to the actual process. Because it's basically this, but for the next 3 hours. And I know that that's going to get boring as hell for anybody that wants to watch this, even if they're into the process and they're process geeks like me. It's not something I would wish on my worst enemy. So I'm going to cut the broadcast off here as soon as I get this little guy finished. And then I'll get back to work knocking out the rest. And I think I'll post the finished product on this one scene as a clip, so you can see what it looks like from start to finish. And okay. Oh, there we go. Got some fixing to do before I finish. Can't stress enough how important it is to get these little leave outs cleared up and cleaned up as quickly as possible, because it will save you infinite amount of cleaning and editing and fixing. And looky there, we got a tangent. As you get closer to the finish. Alright, and I don't want any of that. When I get done with this, I want to be done with it. This thing is eating up enough of my time. I don't want it taking up any more. Alright, I think we're good. Let's get that little guy fixed. I feel like Bob Ross talking about fixing a happy little collar. Not exactly the point, but pretty close. And that, and that. Let's see where I'm at. Alright, I like it. Alright, thank you everybody who was watching, and I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and kick the stream right now, and post this when it's finished, probably later this evening, like around 6. Thanks.